Grace to you all this morning and peace from God our Father and from our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ. Amen. So now it's your turn. I asked you to think about, and those of you who are on Facebook might have gotten a heads up a little earlier, about what your favorite Christmas carol is. Sacred carol. We could talk about Christmas wrapping and the waitresses after service. But what's your favorite Christmas carol, sacred Christmas carol, and why do you like it? Now, it might be the words, it might be an association with a memory that you have of that carol, but anything that is meaningful to you is what we want to hear about today. And I'll start, okay? Because this way I'll break the ice. And then you'll all be clamoring for the microphone. I would like you to use the microphone, by the way, so that everybody can hear you, because I'm sure you have good stories to share, okay? So I just invite you to use the microphone when you share that. So my favorite Christmas carol is Good Christian Friends Rejoice. And the reason I like that one is because it kind of ties it all together. It talks not just about the birth of Jesus, and as that first verse talks about Jesus in the manger and the animals around, but then it quickly moves to what that birth, life, death, and resurrection accomplished for us. And those last two verses, it's only 3 verses, but those last 2 verses are wonderful. And I've sometimes sung them with people who were near death, because it says, "Good Christian friends, rejoice with heart and soul and voice. Now you need not fear the grave. Jesus Christ was born to save. Calls us one and calls us all to gain his everlasting hall." And immediately when I hear that phrase, everlasting hall, I think of this big medieval party, right? And we're all in the hall together and probably drinking these big mugs of beer or whatever your drink of choice is there. And it's just a wonderful party that the birth of this child in the manger has accomplished for us. So that's my favorite. Good Christian Friends Rejoice. Okay, your turn. Susan, thank you.
Okay. Mine would be "Oh Holy Night." And my memory of that is when I was in middle school, we had a new teacher who was the choir teacher, and she happened to be a Jewish lady, but she was an excellent teacher. And I think she really should have been in the high school, but for whatever reasons they sent her to the middle school, and she really would have rather not be with us little kids. But she chose to have a very good choir, and that was the song that she had us sing, among others. And it was the first time I had ever heard that song. And I found the high notes, I could reach the high notes. It made me feel wonderful. And of course the words are beautiful also. And every year when I hear that, and I like to hear it on the radio, I think of that lady who gave us that song, and we did a great job with it. So that's my song.
Great, thanks. Very nice. Who else? It's going to be a really short sermon today. Rick.
See if I can say this without sounding kind of sad, but my favorite is "Angels We've Heard on High." But the memory, I heard it on Muzak at a dime store on the day Kennedy was assassinated. And it was interrupted with the bulletins. But that's the memory that sticks in my head, and I've always just liked that tune. The rolling bass is also very fun to sing, so that's why. So to end it on a positive note, it is a fun song to sing, and it's just one that brings, I don't know if that's a great memory or not, but it sticks in my head. And for all of you to think that Christmas was been pushed just recently, no, because if you think about that, that was before Thanksgiving, and we're listening to Christmas tunes on a Muzak in November, so it was still happening. But that's one of my favorites.
Great, thank you. That's beautiful. What else? Rebecca.
Okay, I like "Of the Father's Love Begotten," because because of Barbara's meditation that she does for women's meditation every year, and she has a piece that's part of it, and it's just a good memory. And she's been doing it for 15, 20 years, and it's very meaningful for Christmas.
That's great. Thank
Oh, and also we've played it in bells, and it's a real challenge, but we have played that.
Nice. Thank you. It's amazing how powerful these memories are.
My favorite is in the bleak midwinter, particularly the third verse, which always takes me back to a midnight service, Christmas Eve service with a new pastor who turned out to be one of those pastors we will always remember. And just before the final hymn, he stood up and recited the third verse of "What should I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would give a lamb. If I was a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? Give my heart." And I'd never heard that before, nor had I ever heard a pastor recite poetry at a Christmas Eve service.
Wow, that's nice. Nice. Thank you. Walter. I'm going to throw this to you, Walter. Can you catch it?
My favorite Christmas hymn is "Lo, How a Rose." It's just such a common, beautiful hymn. That's why I love it.
Good. I'm here. Anybody right here want to? Irene, thanks. Thanks for taking the bait.
This is going to be very short, but it's not a carol, but "Mary, Did You Know" is one of my favorite songs. And you don't hear it very often, but every time I hear it, I just love it.
Yeah. I think it's a relatively new one, isn't it? Or maybe not, but yeah, it's a beautiful one. The Pentatonics do a nice version of that, a cappella, by the way. Anybody else? George?
I don't need the mic.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Okay. People in the back, let us know.
My favorite hymn is a Swedish hymn. I grew up in a church where Swedish was used a lot, and we sang this every year. It's called "Lyssna, lyssna, här du änglasången, lyssna, lyssna, ära vara Gud." Listen, listen, hear the angels sing. Listen, listen, hear the voice of God. And I sing it to myself because nobody else sings it. I got the words for it recently, but I don't have the English translation. So I know it in Swedish, and I don't know the whole thing in English. But it's a favorite, and I just have had it for many years, obviously.
Brings back good memories.
Right.
Nice. Thank you. Nice. Eckhart. Okay.
Around 1982, I went with my son to Salzburg. It was late already, and we tried to find a place to stay overnight. So we kept going in a small town. The name is Oberstdorf. And there, all of a sudden, we were standing in front of the small church where Gruber wrote the song "Silent Night." And it was very, very emotional for us, you know. And I never will forget this. Thank you.
Wow. That's pretty neat. Thank you. Thanks. Who else? Who else?
Well, you just named one which I happen to love, Silent Night, and I actually sing it all year. The kids can't sleep at night because it's easy to sing. And I don't think it counts as a religious song, but "Old Little Drummer Boy," I love that song because it's sort of like in the bleak midwinter. It makes me think of that's what I can do. It's like I'm just a little person and I do what I can do.
Right. Beautiful. Nice. That actually is religious because he plays for the baby Jesus, right? Yeah, that's cool. Thanks. Yeah, you know the story behind Silent Night, right? Everybody knows that story? They went to play the organ that night, and there was one of the pump organs, and the mice had eaten a hole in the bellows, so the organ was shut. So Franz Gruber actually composed it for the guitar. So, yeah.
I'm going to hop on that Silent Night train because it is the best part of Midnight Mass here. And so every year, the first verse where we all get to sing in a different language, I have no idea what I'm singing in Swedish, but I can follow along in English. And I've never been able to speak other languages except here at that very time. And so I like it that basically 4 years in a row, I sing this first verse of something that I never knew before. And it's just a trip. I highly recommend the midnight service if you can stay up that late.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you so much. That's great. Good. Anybody else? We have time. We're doing fine. Don't be shy. Karen.
I think I need the mic. I think I can go into lunch duty. Wait, I was a former teacher, so I'm using my cafeteria voice. Beata asked the question, this very question, at Adult Ed last week, and she and Eckhart mentioned some Christmas carols in German, O du Fröhliche, O du Selige, which I remember my grandmother singing when she was baking, all through Advent, and that was just a wonderful memory. So all of those German Christmas carols have been going through my head all week, thanks to Beata and Eckhart. And we enjoyed a rendition. George sang that Swedish carol for us at Adult Ed, and it's just beautiful. Maybe we can coax him to do it downstairs. But one of the, and I love many of the Christmas carols, especially at the Father's Love Begotten. But one of the ones that as I'm thinking about how we evangelize, it's some of the carols that have been written by some of the missionaries. And one of my favorites of that is the Huron Carol, which was "'Twas in the Moon of Wintertime." And we're going to be singing that a little later in the service. And the images, so that the birth of this child would be something that would resonate with the native people. So you hear the baby, instead of swaddling clothes, he's in rabbit fur. And then another one that we'll be singing later is from another missionary in Malawi, where they take that music and add the text to it, that's to tell the story. And I think just bringing in this international stuff, not just Western European American Christmas carols, but a much broader spectrum.
Good. Thank you. Thanks. Anybody else? Louise.
Again, Silent Night brings back great memories of when I went to go to, it wasn't midnight, but it was 7:30 Mass at our church in Yonkers, and with my parents. And after church, we would drive around Crestwood because a bunch of the houses did luminaire lights, like a lot in a row. So it was a fun tradition.
Anybody else? Everybody's being shy. Okay. Feel free to talk about this more downstairs, but isn't it amazing how songs, music and words have such powerful memories and associations for us that are real blessings, and just singing those, maybe even if you're not a good singer, if you know the song by Harry Chapin about Lucas Tanner? Harry Chapin has this beautiful song about this guy who owns, anybody know this song? He owns a dry cleaners or something like that, and he sings at night to himself while he's working late. And the guy who does it is a member of Harry Chapin's band, and he has this rich, beautiful voice. And his friends hear him on occasion, and they encourage him. The song he sings is "O Holy Night," and they encourage him to go professional. And he tries it once, and the reviewers are not very kind to him. And he kind of withdraws a little bit into himself. But at night, when he's working, he sings that hymn again, and it just brings that wonderful, rich, good feeling of being connected to God and being connected to tradition. So song, music, hymns can do that for us. So if you're ever feeling depressed, put on some music or sing a hymn. Have George teach you Listen or something like that. And it really has a powerful way to move our souls. So thank you all for sharing, and let's continue this conversation, and let's continue our worship.